A tough outcome for Alexandra Eala. She had a fantastic tournament breaking into the world's top 30 for the first time, but Nosková is the one who will be advancing. Reflecting on the energy from the Filipino community, particularly during your first match in the second round, how did that experience feel for you? How will you take that memory with you into the future? A painful loss in the desert. While Linda Noskova decisively defeated Alexandra Eala at Indian Wells, it was Eala's post-match grace that captivated everyone. If you've ever sought confirmation that professional tennis is the most mentally demanding, emotionally exposing, and relentlessly competitive sport in the world, then what just transpired under the intense California sun is the proof you need. Hello and welcome to Champions Tennis, your premier source for the most captivating, thrilling, and heartfelt tennis narratives you'll find anywhere online. Today's story is one of depth and emotion, because the events from the BNP Paribas Open in the California desert have a complexity that the highlights just can't convey. We're talking about a 56-minute thrashing that resulted in a 6-2, 6-0 final score. This was a contest that concluded faster than a typical lunch hour, yet it was packed with enough intrigue, disappointment, and raw human resilience to fuel an entire television drama. The focus is on Alexandra Eala, the rising star of Philippine tennis, in her showdown with the formidable Czech player Linda Noskova, and the fallout from their encounter is something that will be analyzed in the tennis community for years to come. So get comfortable, as this is much more than a simple match report. It's a deep dive into pressure, identity, and the immense responsibility of carrying a nation's hopes on 20-year-old shoulders, and it's about witnessing an athlete confront a crushing defeat, yet still manage to find a path forward. Let's begin. Merely by participating at Indian Wells this year, Alexandra Eala had already etched her name in the history books. She was the very first athlete from the Philippines to ever step onto the court for a main draw match at the BNP Paribas Open. And she didn't just participate, she went on an absolute tear. Just consider the significance of the BNP Paribas Open for a moment. She was the inaugural Filipino competitor in the long and distinguished history of this event, which many consider the fifth major in the tennis world. The weight of that distinction alone would cause many athletes to falter before they even started. But for her, it was pure motivation. Her journey began with a tense three-set clash against Dayana Yastremska, where she had to dig incredibly deep to pull out a victory in a physically demanding match. Following that, in the round of 16, she faced world number 4 Coco Gauff and was ahead 6-2, 2-0 before Gauff had to withdraw with a left arm injury. Now, predictably, some on the internet tried to diminish that win. To them, we have a simple response: watch the match again. Gauff even stated it herself in her press conference. She expressed her disappointment in having to retire, emphasizing that Eala was playing exceptionally well and that she didn't want her withdrawal to detract from Eala's outstanding performance. I'm normally quite anxious, and I was a little bit today, but I believe it was the calmest I've ever felt entering a Grand Slam's first round aside from the whole racket issue. For tennis aficionados, this result was no fluke. This was an immensely skilled young athlete flawlessly carrying out her strategy against one of the sport's biggest stars, and her opponent was simply unable to finish the match. You have to give credit where it's deserved. Eala was the superior player on the court that evening. That win also gave Eala an impressive 3-3 record against top 5 ranked players, with victories over Madison Keys and Iga Świątek in Miami in 2025 and now Gauff at Indian Wells. Just think about that roster again. Iga Świątek, the most commanding figure of her era. Madison Keys, a Grand Slam winner. Coco Gauff, a 2-time major champion and one of the most celebrated athletes the game has produced. Alexandra Eala has now defeated all three. At 20 years old, she is far beyond being just a promising talent. She is a legitimate and powerful presence on the WTA Tour, and anyone who continues to overlook her is poised for a significant shock very soon. But then came Tuesday's match. Then she faced Linda Noskova, and the fairy tale run came to a sudden halt against a seemingly unstoppable force, ranked 14th in the world and seeded 14th. Nosková started the match by breaking Eala's serve in the opening game, and from that point on, she never let up. Starting from 4-2 in the first set, Noskova reeled off 8 straight games, sealing a 6-2, 6-0 victory in only 55 minutes. 55 minutes. On one of the sport's grandest stages during her first appearance at Indian Wells, with the eyes of the entire Philippines on her. Alex. Eala was taken apart with such totality, such precision, and such mercilessness that you almost had to double-check the scoreboard to believe what you were seeing. The second set was a bagel, a complete shutout, a 0. Not a single game was won. It was the sporting equivalent of a first-round knockout. The match statistics painted a similarly grim picture. Noskova hit 7 aces compared to Eala's none. Her serving was utterly dominant. She won 77% of points on her first serve and a staggering 81% on her second. She capitalized on 5 of her 8 breakpoint chances according to GMA News Online. When a tennis player is winning over 4 of every 5 points on their second serve, they aren't just playing at a high level. They're performing at a tier where their rival has absolutely no way to counter. Nothing. Zero. That was precisely the situation Eala found herself confronting. Eala had significant trouble with her first serve, all match landing only 57% of them, and winning a mere 36% of the points when she did. For tennis experts in today's game, those statistics are absolutely devastating. If your serve isn't working, you simply cannot win. And Noskova, with her powerful ground strokes and a serve that was firing perfectly that night, ensured that Eala could never establish any sort of rhythm or momentum in the contest. But this is the point where the narrative becomes truly compelling because it's the element that you won't find recorded in any of the stats. This is precisely where you see the makings of a true champion. Still reeling from a brutal 6-2, 6-0 loss, Alex Eala faced the press. It would have been easy to blame something the weather, her schedule, or the intense pressure. She could have pointed to Gauff's withdrawal in the last round and how that threw off her momentum. She didn't do any of that. Instead, her honesty was sharp and almost painful. A tough match, she stated. I think she played super well. I don't think I was able to find my groove and nothing clicked for me in today's match. As Tennis Head noted, there were no excuses or deflections, just the unvarnished truth delivered with the poise of a seasoned veteran. What she said next, however, made everyone in the room pause. It was a statement that completely changed the perspective on her entire Indian Wells campaign. I do leave with happiness, she shared. I think tomorrow I'll be a bit happier than I am now. Of course, the initial feelings after the match are a tough pill to swallow, but I'm in the 4th round of Indian Wells. I'm really happy about that. It's still something I'm really proud of. I wish it could have ended under different circumstances, but it is what it is, and there will be a next time, for sure. BNP Paribas Open. Let that sink in for a second. In a sold-out stadium at one of the sport's biggest tournaments, she had just lost the second set without winning a single game. After suffering one of the most one-sided defeats of her young career, she walked out and declared she was leaving with happiness. That isn't denial, and it is not just public relations talk. That is the mentality of a competitor who gets the bigger picture, someone who can look past the immediate pain of a loss to appreciate the incredible path she is on. I think my experiences here in my matches have really meant a lot for me, she continued. I have been able to bring out a certain level and dig really deep in all circumstances. Even tonight, it is a learning experience for me. Even though I would not consider today's match a positive experience, I believe it will have a positive impact on my progression as a player. Tennis 365 points out that this is it, the defining quality of a champion in waiting. It's the capacity to find meaning in defeat, to take a harsh lesson and use it to build herself up. That is more than just athleticism. That is a kind of wisdom that many veteran pros spend years or even their entire careers trying to find. Then came the sentence that will surely resonate with the Philippine sports world for a long time. I know I belong here. So, it does not matter if I win the tournament in Miami or if I lose in the first round. I know I am here, and I am here to stay. According to Tennis 365. I'm here to stay is not just a phrase. Those 4 words carry the burden of all the sleepless nights, the grueling practices at the Rafa Nadal Academy, and every defeat she had to endure, analyze, and use as fuel. I am here to stay. For any Filipino tennis fan watching at 2 o'clock in the morning from Manila, Cebu, or anywhere else in the country heartbroken over the final score, those 4 words were the very comfort you were looking for. Let's now shift our focus to the other part of this narrative, because Linda Noskova deserves all the credit she's getting and more. Here is a player who is making her presence known on the grandest stage, and she is doing it with confidence and flair. This was Noskova's 4th appearance at Indian Wells, and it marked her first time ever reaching the quarterfinals of the tournament. At just 21 years of age, she became the 2nd youngest Czech player to make it to 3 quarterfinals at the WTA 1000 level since the format began in 2009, surpassed only by the legendary Marketa Vondrousova. The WTA reminds us to let that sink in. Marketa Vondrousova later won Wimbledon. The kind of company Noskova is joining in the history books is truly top tier. Following the match, Noskova addressed the audience saying, "I was definitely feeling very well prepared from the start to the end. I was using my serve a lot, obviously putting as much pressure as I could and trying to keep the rallies under control." As the WTA pointed out, that is how a strategist talks. Someone who devised a plan, carried it out perfectly, and left the court with complete certainty about her victory. Noskova's win against Eala was not a fluke. She was better prepared, served more effectively, and simply outplayed her in every measurable way. What is fascinating is that this was their debut professional matchup even though they had faced each other as juniors. In fact, Eala had bested the Czech player on two separate occasions during their junior careers at the Les Petits final in Tarbes, France in 2018 and again in the quarterfinals of the 2020 French Open Girls Tournament, reports ESPN. It seems the dynamic has shifted entirely since their time as juniors. Back then, it was the young player from the Philippines who came out on top against her Czech opponent. Now, on the senior circuit, the Czech player has responded with overwhelming power, putting the head-to-head professional record firmly at 1-0 in Noskova's favor. Whenever their next encounter happens, it is guaranteed to be appointment viewing, and you can be sure both competitors are already aware of that. But there is another crucial point we have to discuss, the obvious issue that should have Alex Eala's team working overtime. Eala's record now stands at 0-11 against Czech opponents on the WTA Tour. That is a complete shutout over 11 professional contests against players from the Czech Republic. ESPN reports 11 defeats and not a single victory against one country's players. That is no accident. That is a clear pattern. The Czech style of tennis, known for its powerful ground strokes, relentless return game, and nearly unshakable mental strength, has proven to be Eala's kryptonite time and time again. Solving that particular riddle is now likely the most urgent strategic problem she faces on her path to the top. This is especially true because the Czech Republic continues to churn out elite world-class talent at an astonishing pace. Model me mo. And if Eala can't crack that stylistic code, she's going to keep hitting a brick wall at the most crucial times. But let's step back and look at the bigger picture here, because her journey at this Indian Wells tournament is honestly one of the most remarkable breakthrough stories the WTA has seen in years. Just 12 months ago, Eala was ranked somewhere around 140 in the world. She was still battling through qualifying rounds, just trying to prove she deserved to be in the main draw of the major tournaments. She got into last year's Miami Open on a wild card, took down Madison Keys and Iga Świątek during an incredible run to the semifinals, where she eventually lost to Jessica Pegula, according to Yahoo Sports. That performance was the spark, the moment everyone sat up and asked, "Hold on, who is this person?" Flash forward 12 months, and she's the 31st seed at Indian Wells, earning a bye into the second round as a seeded player. In her very first appearance at what's often called the 5th Grand Slam, she makes it all the way to the 4th round. After her run at Indian Wells, she's projected to climb 4 spots to number 28 in the live rankings, and she'll earn $15,720 in prize money from this event. Tennis 365. Her total career earnings have now surpassed $1.76 million, placing her among the top 400 all-time earners in the history of women's tennis. According to Tennis 365, this career path has shattered almost every expectation and timeline set for her, and incredibly, she's only 20 years old. The milestones she achieved during her Indian Wells run are just astounding. She made history as the first player from the Philippines to ever compete in the main draw of the BNP Paribas Open, and she reached the round of 16 on her first try. Along the way, she notched wins against both a Grand Slam champion and another top-ranked opponent. If you had told tennis fans in the Philippines 5 years ago that this would be happening in 2026, they would have thought you were delusional. Yet, this is her reality. So, let's look ahead, because the Miami Open is right around the corner, and it's arguably the most pivotal event of the entire year for Eala. She has to defend the 390 WTA ranking points she earned from her semi-final run in Miami last year, which is more than any other tournament on her schedule this season. According to Yahoo Sports, that is a tremendous amount of points she needs to protect. A loss early in Miami means her ranking will take a major hit just as she's trying to crack the world's top 20. The amount of pressure on her will be immense, but what she's shown us repeatedly is that she doesn't just crumble when things get tough. Sometimes she actually thrives on it. Her serve was definitely an issue against Nosková, and that will require serious attention in practice over the next few days. Her struggle to find a rhythm from the baseline against the Czechs' powerful non-stop attack is something her team will need to break down and strategize for. But her core weapons are still there, that lefty forehand that spins and drops in ways right-handed opponents find incredibly difficult to anticipate. The clutch mentality which secured her wins over top players like Keys and Gauff. And the pure athletic intelligence she displays on the court. None of those strengths disappeared at Indian Wells. They were just neutralized by an opponent who was absolutely lights out for 55 minutes. The Miami Open is going to be a real test of Eala's character this season. We're about to find out if her Indian Wells performance was a launch pad or a new ceiling. We're putting our money on it being a launch pad every time, and we can't ignore the poetic and bittersweet nature of her going back to Miami. That's the very tournament where the Alexandra Eala phenomenon started last year. She was the wild card who made it to the semifinals, taking out Grand Slam champions and putting the tennis world on notice in spectacular fashion. Now, she returns not as a long-shot wild card, but as a seeded player, a top 30 professional, and a legitimate threat to make a deep run. Same courts, same Florida heat, but a totally different Alexandra Eala. What an amazing storyline. And before we wrap up today, we have to give a huge shout out to all the Filipino tennis fans who were up at 2, even 3 in the morning to watch that match, the ones who were devastated by the score, but still woke up the next day feeling proud. We're talking about the fans who flooded her social media with love and support instead of criticism after a tough loss. Filipino sports fans are truly among the most passionate, loyal, and supportive communities in all of sports. They really deserve to have a champion to cheer for. And they are watching one being built right now, piece by piece, match by match, lesson by lesson. Alexandra Eala even said it. So we'll let her own words be the final thought for today's show. She is confident she belongs at this level. She's here and she plans on staying. Okay, now it's your turn, Champions Tennis family. How concerned are you about Eala's 0-11 record against players from the Czech Republic? Do you believe she'll rebound at the Miami Open and defend those semifinal points? Or will the weight of protecting 390 ranking points be too much to bear? And on the other side, what about Linda Noskova, who's now moving on to the quarterfinals? How deep do you see her going in the Indian Wells tournament this year? Let us know all your thoughts, predictions, bold takes, and any messages of support for Alex down in the comments section. We make sure to read every single comment, and we absolutely love the discussions that get started down there. This is one of the greatest communities in tennis, and you all are the entire reason this channel is here. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please do us a solid and hit the like button. It only takes 2 seconds of your time. It truly helps our channel connect with more tennis fans globally, and it lets the algorithm know that this type of analysis is valuable. And if you haven't joined the Champions Tennis family yet, what's stopping you? Go ahead and hit subscribe and ring that notification bell because we'll be covering every shocking twist, major upset, emotional low, and triumphant victory from both the WTA and ATP tours all season long. We're always on top of the major headlines, and we promise never to serve you a dull summary when there's genuine excitement to get into. After the break, we'll dive into the complete tactical masterclass of how Nosková took apart Eala's defensive game, the specific serve patterns she exploited, the rally combinations she used to neutralize Eala's left-handed forehand, and the essential tweaks Eala has to implement before the Miami tournament. Believe me, for all you tennis strategists out there, this is a segment you won't want to skip. In the meantime, stay tuned, keep the conversation going, and always keep in mind that here at Champions Tennis, the action is non-stop. A tough outcome for Alexandra Eala. Yeah. She had a great run in this tournament, breaking into the world's top 30 for the first time ever. But in the end, it's Nosková who's advancing. Linan. If I can build on the point about the incredible energy from the crowd and the Filipino community, when you think back to that opening night, that second-round match, what was that whole experience like for you and what part of it will you carry forward? Absolutely, I could see the stadium was completely packed. It felt like every time I looked up, I saw Filipino fans everywhere.